practices.
So then that affects the contractor because he's trying to get his house built on time for his customers. And then that affects the supply chain because if the contractor is not ordering the material, then the supply chain is leaving.
In central New York, A.J. Warmoth owns a dairy farm and also chairs the Northeast Dairy Producers Association. He hopes the U.S. and Canada reach a better trade deal. Existing tariffs on steel, aluminum, and uncertainty.
And good Thursday evening to you. This is KJZZ 91.5. We're also online and on your phone. In traffic right now, severe thunderstorm warning in Phoenix affecting the South Mountain Loop 202 area. Expect flooding and slow traffic in that area.
KJZZ is supported by Beatitudes Campus, celebrating its 60-year anniversary of serving Arizona seniors. You can experience the community and people at an upcoming event. More at beatitudescampus.org/events.
And an update on the Loop 202 southbound near Vicuiva Way. There is a crash that's on the right.
At 6 o'clock, we'll talk business. This is Marketplace. I'm Kai.
Coming up in World Business Report in just a moment.
What, if anything, has changed in American manufacturing?
Global oil prices have risen again.
Wall Street today. We'll have the details when we do the numbers.
The Producer Price Index last month came in at a steady 4.7%, regardless of whether you strip out energy, trade services, and food, which is interesting to say the least. A look at how volatile energy prices pass through to the rest of the economy. That's next on Marketplace at 6.
Arizona politics can be prickly. That's why KJZZ's politics desk asks the tough questions.
What makes this congressional district so special?
Do you think that's true? Do you think this makes things easier for Democrats?
Why are you the best champion, the best voice to represent those issues at the congressional level?
Sign up for the Prickly newsletter and get the Prickly podcast on Apple Podcasts or Spotify.
Support KJCZ by donating a vehicle, boat, truck, or car, and become a member. Jason from Phoenix supported the news he trusts by donating their 2016 Kia Sorento. Learn more at cars.kjzz.org.
This evening should be 82 degrees and partly cloudy. Mostly cloudy for Friday, tomorrow with a high of 100. By the weekend on Saturday, mostly sunny and 104 degrees. Currently it's 89 in Tucson, 70 and rainy in Flagstaff, rain and thunder in Phoenix, and 99 degrees at 5:50.
From NPR News, this is All Things Considered. I'm Juana Summers.
And I'm Scott Detrow here with another edition of Spacing Out with our friends from Shortwave, Regina Barber and Ari Daniel. Hey there.
Hey.
Hi, Scott.
Ari, you came back for more.
I couldn't stay away. I love Spacing Out.
And he's even physically here.
I know.
And we didn't scare him.
And as we tape right now, a solar eclipse is happening in another country that we are not looking at, but we will.
I'm a little sad.
We will just push through those feelings, and we will talk about 3 other space stories this week. What are they?
So, first up, the beauty of the Perseid meteor shower.
And then a fascinating new look at the surface of the sun.
And then to round it all out, we're going to get into the news that part of a SpaceX rocket smashed into the moon.
All right, I love a meteor shower. Let's start there. The Perseid meteor shower peaked Wednesday night, let's start with the basics. What exactly are meteor showers?
Right. So I just want to say real quick, there was a new moon yesterday, so the skies were really dark, great for stargazing. But Scott, as an astronomer, I think it's fascinating that meteor showers are basically like the Earth traveling through a field of debris left over by comets or in some cases asteroids.
That is why the Perseids happen around the same time every year. Earth is orbiting the sun, as you know, Scott, and this is just the part of our path when we intersect with that leftover trail from the comet Swift-Tuttle.
I appreciate your confidence in my space knowledge there. One thing I don't know, though, and I've actually always wanted to know, is when did humans first figure out that these shooting stars that show up every year are actually from comets?
Yeah, so let's start with like just meteor showers in general, because like I spoke with Matt Schindel, a planetary science historian with the Smithsonian. He says that the Perseids were first recorded in 36 AD in the Han Dynasty of ancient China.
People have been observing meteor showers for as long as people have been recording history.
But it wasn't until the mid-1800s when astronomers started figuring out that comets might be the cause of meteor showers.
Oh. And help me visualize this a little bit more when we're talking about debris from a comet. Is this like little bits and pieces that flaked off as it zoomed through space?
Yeah, so people are seeing those tiny bits of comet debris burn up in our atmosphere.
Keep in mind, like, the things that you're seeing are incredibly small. Like, most of this debris is only about the size of a grain of sand. You know, that itself is pretty impressive, that this little thing burning up in our atmosphere is putting on such a big show.
Give us some tips here. If I want to see them, what do I need to do right?
So, Scott, leave town. Get away from the city lights. Yeah, and then once you're in the dark, let your eyes adjust. This is really important for about 20 to 30 minutes. Then you should be able to see those faint streaks of light across the sky, those shooting stars. Almost all meteor showers are best observed after midnight, so bring a blanket, lay down, look up, but set your expectations for no more than 1 minute. It's not going to be like Star Trek, like raining down.
Not warp drive.
No.
Okay.
Just a singular sparkle every minute.
Yeah, basically.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's turn to the topic of the surface of the sun, which I will just say, we talked about this very early on, that I had not yet read the book Project Hail Mary.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not actually reading the book as we speak, so the surface of the sun, high in my mind.
Okay.
Let's talk about it.
I love it.
So we've known, Scott, that the sun creates enormous amounts of energy in its core. The surface of the sun, which is this boiling brew of hot and magnetized charged particles, plays a key role in transporting that energy out into space.
So it's like a giant cup of hot ionized coffee.
Yes.
You said it. Now, the new results published in the journal Nature come from the Daniel K. Inouye Solar Telescope in Hawaii, the most powerful instrument we have to look at the sun.
So researchers were able to visualize the solar surface at a resolution of almost 12 miles. That's like seeing an ant on the ground from 100 miles away. So check out these images that came out in this study.
Do you have them up on your computer?
I do. They're right here.
Let me see.
Yeah.
Whoa!
And I've even got a video.
Yeah, it's so
Let me see the video. Whoa! It looks like amoebas or something under in a microscope almost, and or like a kaleidoscope. It's beautiful.
Like astrophage.
It's really stunning. We are looking at the swirls and pulses of plasma on the surface of the sun. David Kuridza, a solar physicist at the National Solar Observatory in Boulder and a co-author of the study, was blown away by what he saw.
We immediately realized that we had something very, very special. The surface of the sun is much more dynamic, much more finely structured.
In particular, David and his colleagues noticed that when different layers of plasma move past one another at different speeds, they generate subtle disturbances that grow into large swirling vortices. This turbulence happens on the edges of magnetic features on the sun's surface, which are pretty much everywhere.
I love the magnetic fields. Okay, and also scientists have long predicted these instabilities, and this is the first time they've been observed.
So, any sense yet what this might mean for our understanding of the sun?
Well, first, this could help explain a pretty big mystery. Why is the corona, the outermost halo of the sun, so much hotter than the surface? And second, these vortices may help fuel explosive solar events.
Like what?
So like coronal mass ejections, right? Like these solar storms that kind of come towards Earth, they are created by these twisted up magnetic fields. And this kind of solar weather can affect satellites and power grids. So this discovery opens up a new avenue of exploring how the sun creates and transports energy to its surface and sometimes towards Earth.
Last topic. This is something I saw a lot of headlines about, and I had a bunch of questions. This is that piece of SpaceX rocket that smashed into the moon. Is this common?
Well, I mean, the moon has been hit by a bunch of stuff over the billions of years it's been around, mostly meteors, natural stuff. That's why there are so many craters, Scott.
Right, which we saw in those beautiful pictures from Artemis 2 earlier this year.
Exactly, but less frequently do human-made things hit the moon. However, when lunar missions end, like some of the Apollo missions, the spacecraft parts are intentionally smashed into the moon. This SpaceX crash on August 5th was not one of those.
What happened?
It was part of the Falcon 9 rocket that was launched in January 2025, and it took 2 landers to the moon. SpaceX says the upper rocket was supposed to be left in space, but things didn't go as planned.
So scientists tracked this rocket part and alerted everyone months in advance that yes, it's gonna hit the moon. They figured out the date and the location.
I mean, this still doesn't sound great though, an unintentional crash.
Yeah, I think that the headlines of this crash seem to make people think that, but
one person's junk is another person's treasure. Here, scientists love things hitting the moon.
That's Brett Denevi, a lunar scientist who will be working on the future Artemis missions to the moon.
When I saw the headline that there was going to be something hitting the moon and we knew when and where, I was excited. That's great.
Scientists can use these impacts to study the lunar material that gets shot out during these collisions, which can tell them more about how the moon got all these ancient lunar craters and how the moon was even made.
That is Ari Daniel and Regina Barber from NPR Science Podcast, Shortwave. Thank you for spacing out with me.
Yeah.
Thank you, Scott.
Thank you. Space out.
You're listening to All Things Considered from NPR News.
Support for NPR comes from this station and from Cigna Healthcare. At Cigna Healthcare, they're dedicated to being there through life's everyday and extraordinary health moments. Learn more at Cigna.com/better. From the Wallace Foundation, an independent, nonpartisan research foundation, collaborating with grantees and partners in the arts, school leadership, and youth development. More at wallacefoundation.org. From the Cy Sims Foundation, since 1985, supporting advances in science, education, and the arts towards a fairer, more just, and civil society. More information is available at cysimsfoundation.org. And from the listeners who support this NPR station.
And good evening. You've been listening to All Things Considered on member-supported KJZZ FM Phoenix and HD. Marketplace is up next. We also broadcast on K255AC Tucson at 98.9 FM and K219 DZ Rio Verde at 91.7 FM.
The U.S.-Israeli war against Iran is approaching 6 months, and behind the headlines about the Strait of Hormuz and the economy are the people trying to survive both the bombings on their country and the increasingly hardline regime in power. We hear from Iranians in the border town of Van in Turkey, where our colleague Hadil El-Shalchi is reporting on the next Morning Edition from NPR News.
Morning Edition is tomorrow from 5 until 9 on 91.5.
Reliable news shouldn't fade away. Your planned gift ensures KJZZ stays strong for future listeners. Leave a legacy of facts. Legacy.kjzz.org.
Overnight should be 82 degrees. It's currently raining and 99 degrees at 6 o'clock.
Marketplace is supported by JLL, a global commercial real estate firm that helps clients find, manage, and invest in properties across all sectors. JLL, see a brighter way.
One single number to start things off today about, the future of this economy from American Public Media. This is Marketplace.
Marketplace is supported by Odoo.com, offering integrated programs for sales, customer relationship management, inventory, and other business operations, designed to work together as a customizable software suite. Odoo, all your business on one platform. And by Solidigm, offering solid-state storage solutions optimized for AI with higher capacities, greater speed, and energy efficiency. Solidigm, AI data infrastructure built on a solid foundation. Learn more at storageforai.com.
In Los Angeles, I'm Kai Risdell. It is Thursday today, the 13th of August. Good as it always is to have you along, everybody. We're going to do something a little bit different to get going today. I'm going to give you a number, then Greg Ip is going to tell you what it is and why it matters. Greg is a columnist at the Wall Street Journal, also one of our Friday regulars. Hey, Greg.
Hey, thanks for having me, Kai.
All right, 5.216%. What was that? What is that?
So, Kai, that is the interest rate that the government will be paying on 30-year bonds that were sold at auction today. And the reason that matters, it's one of the highest rates, in fact, I believe it is the highest rate that the government has said that it will pay on a newly issued 30-year bond in almost 20 years. And I suppose that as taxpayers, that's the kind of thing that's kind of bother us because we have a lot of debt. And every time these rates go up, it means we have to pay even more interest to service that debt.
We will get on to the debt in just a moment, but one imagines that what this is saying is, contra Chairman Warsh, rates are going to be higher for longer, yes?
Right. So Chairman Warsh, Chairman of the Federal Reserve, who controls what we call the short-term interest rate, the rate that's charged on overnight loans. But if you are taking out a mortgage, or if you're a business that wants to build a factory, you care more about long-term interest rates. And those are set by the bond market, not by the Federal Reserve. And that's why you should care about what these 30-year bond yields are and these 10-year bond yields are. And in spite of the Federal Reserve not having raised interest rates in quite a while, those 10 and 30-year bond yields have been creeping higher all year long. And that reflects several things. Number one, inflation is still kind of sticky. So any hope that the Fed would cut short-term rates is kind of like gone out the window, especially with oil prices going high as a result of the war in Iran. Secondly, a lot of people want to borrow, most of all the federal government. We just recently learned that the deficit this year will be $2.1 trillion, a very large number, which is actually $200 billion more than the Congressional Budget Office thought it would be. And third, people are just kind of worried that maybe this Federal Reserve isn't as committed to low inflation as it should be, and maybe this government and our Congress aren't as committed to eventually getting deficits down as much as they should. And you put all those things together, Kai, and the lenders who buy our Treasury debt want higher compensation for those risks. And every borrower in America pays the price.
Let's talk about those fiscal policymakers that Federal Reserve chairs low these many decades have been talking about, and frankly, saying without actually saying the words, they are not doing their jobs, right? Our fiscal path is unsustainable, they invariably say to a person. What are we supposed to do with that as taxpayers who see now very nearly $40 trillion in national debt? We're paying $1 trillion in interest on the debt every year. Where do we go?
Well, if you're a taxpayer and a voter, you could start by, asking your congressman or your senator or your presidential candidate what they plan to do about it. Sadly, Kai, I don't think they're being asked that question. When you actually poll on this question, there isn't a lot of concern out there among voters about the deficit. What are they concerned about? They want their taxes to stay lower. They want the government to pay for more things, keep their Social Security nice and safe, more subsidies for health care. And then, of course, we have a war with Iran going on right now, and that's going to cost a lot of money to replace munitions, and the president wants a bigger defense budget. So all around us, we hear people asking for lower taxes and more spending. We don't hear a lot of people asking for a smaller deficit. So until they start asking for that, it's not obvious what the political value is for anybody in Congress or anybody running for president to seriously address it.
We did a question and answer thing on our Instagram today. I answered a bunch of audience questions, and one of the questions was, how long until the United States enters a death spiral? And I gave a much more longer answer than this, but the short answer was, as soon as the bond market gives up on us. right?
That's right. Now, not to bury the lead, we just don't know when that will happen.
Right.
Countries have run bigger debts relative to their economy than we have right now. And the U.S. is lucky in that we issue the world's most desirable debt. A lot of people want to own treasuries because they're very safe. And they're denominated in dollars, which is the world's most popular currency. So most economists will tell you that we can continue to run very large deficits and have very large debt for a very long time without a disaster. But year by year, we will be penalized with slightly higher interest rates, which then will ripple through to everybody else. And then there is a possibility, not the probability, but the possibility that something could really go wrong. Because of all the money that we have to borrow, the Treasury has to go to the market every week and ask for more money, buy more of our Treasury bills, more of our Treasury bonds. And if they happen to do that one week when the world's worried about something, maybe a trade war, maybe a war with Iran or something like that, maybe they don't manage to sell all that debt and you have like a disaster in the markets. I don't think that's anybody's base case, but when you're borrowing as much as we have and the world is as risky as it is, it's surely got to be something you worry about more than you used to.
Greg Ip at the Wall Street Journal. Greg, thank you so much. Appreciate your time.
Yeah, always a pleasure. Thanks, Guy.
Wall Street today, you're going to chuckle when I say this. New record highs. Details, numbers when we get there. We got the producer price index today. Wholesale inflation cooled just a tiny bit. The core rate, that's minus food and energy, sits at 4.2%. But that whole let's not count energy thing? Really? Here's Marketplace's Elizabeth Troval.
Today was another day of softer inflation data, says economist Ben Ayers with Nationwide.
Beyond energy, there's not much inflationary pressure.
It's disinflation, not deflation, says Stephen Juneau with Bank of America.
Prices aren't falling at all, but a little bit lower price growth than what we were accustomed to.
Though constraints on global energy markets are still very much a thing. That affects producers in a few ways, says Aaron McLaughlin with the Conference Board, through higher material costs, transportation costs, and
manufacturers, producers of goods have to purchase energy to power, to power their plants.
So how long will it take until energy isn't shaping inflation? Grace Swemmer is with Oxford Economics.
Given the uptick in energy prices at the start of August, we kind of would expect to see some of those pressures still remain.
She says it'll take longer to get down to pre-war levels.
There will be, slight lag between energy prices coming down and sort of, further deceleration in that transportation and warehousing sector.
And of course, there is always the risk of a secondary shock. Aaron McLaughlin again.
Really what we've seen in the last year or two is just a rolling environment of shock, right? This sort of Iran war shock. Before that, we had the tariff shock.
It's hard to completely count out another inflationary shock, like a hurricane being just around the corner. I'm Elizabeth Troval for Marketplace.
The big thing about producer prices, for those of us in the consuming public, is what they mean for retailers and for what consumers wind up paying. Marketplace's Stephanie Hughes has that one.
At Tochterman's Fishing Tackle in Baltimore, you get hit with a bunch of smells as soon as you walk in.
You'll smell garlic, you'll smell like shrimp.
Deanna and Tony Tochterman own the store. Those smells come from gels and sprays that go on fishing lures, and some of those lures are getting more expensive. Tony Tochterman holds a jar filled with imitation eels. But it's not the fake eels that cost more, it's the plastic jar they're in.
The price on getting the material to make this jar has gone up considerably.
Right now, the eels go for $22. Tochterman expects that'll go up by a couple bucks to cover the increased cost of the plastic packaging, which is derived from oil.
A lot of things are done because of petroleum.
Transportation costs are also up. Tochterman says a lot of his suppliers are upping the minimum he has to order to get free shipping. So he's buying more of certain products to avoid paying for shipping.
You can't afford to absorb that.
Around the corner at Local Stitch, a brand new yarn store, owner Natasha Jones says fewer of her distributors are covering shipping too. And when she adds online sales later this year, she won't be able to pay for it either.
because I don't have enough of a profit margin to be able to like provide free shipping in the way that these big corporations do.
Some of the wool for sale here is dyed in-house. Jones's fingers are actually tinged blue from indigo.
Sometimes my cat's paws are blue as well, so...
She also sells wool from other companies, and earlier this summer, she noticed that wool prices from one domestic mill increased by about 25%.
We were selling this at $28 a skein, and now we have to sell it at $35 per skein.
So she's offering less of this brand because she doesn't want to be the shop that only has expensive wool.
That's just not fun.
Business slows for yarn in August, but across town at the ice cream scoop shop and factory of the Charmery, it's the busiest time of year. Ahmed Bakayoko is wrangling a 5-gallon bag of milk, cream, and sugar into an ice cream maker. He describes his technique.
Hold it like a turtle by the neck, a little bit upside down, so you control the flow.
He's making a batch of Telltale Chocolate, a reference to the short story by Edgar Allan Poe, who died in Baltimore, in case you didn't know. David Alima, the owner, has also tried out some weird flavors, like biscuits and gravy.
We were very skeptical it would be good, and then you taste it and you're like, I like that.
Alima, who has a picture of Gene Wilder as Willy Wonka in his office, started the company 13 years ago, and there's a feeling of Wonka-esque whimsy in the air. But the increased cost of ingredients is real.
Everything is just rising. Chocolate, strawberries,